So today I'm going to cover why patient safety goals are important. The theme of the 2020 list of the goals. There will be a brief explanation about each goals, the policy formulation, and a small view of the IPSG week celebration was done in the last year in the 2019 by a hospital. So why patient safety goals are important? It is important because there are always chances of the improvement in the patient safety where we are working. So we can promote our specific improvements which are needed in the hospital as per JCI to highlight the problematic areas in the healthcare. Sometimes we may overlook the areas which we have to check it and we have to correct it on time, which may lead to a disaster in case. So we have to highlight the problematic areas during our daily rounds and quarterly rounds, and we have to describe the evidence-based and expert-based solutions for that and need to overcome with it. So we can prevent any disaster in a hospital and we can be safe with our patients, and even the organization also will be abiding with that. So the theme of the International Patient Safety Goal for 2020 is health worker safety. It is a priority for patient safety. This week starts from, as I told you, 2nd December to 7th December. Internationally, it is celebrated over the globe. So, as a healthcare worker or the provider, we have to see that we do not harm any of our clients. It is our utmost responsibility that when the patients are admitted in the hospital, when they come with one problem, they have to, it should be our goal and motto that they get well soon and they go home very safely and on time. Sometimes if knowingly or unknowingly some incident happens and due to safety related, then there may be a disaster that patient will land up into some other problem, and it will give a burden to a patient and the relative, economical burden, psychological burden, and of course it is a physical burden also. And even the healthcare worker burden also will be increased, and then it will like a quality performance based also, it will be measured that how good quality care is performed. So safety is an underlying reason for risk management. Of course, it is for infection control and environmental management also. In the hospital, moreover, everybody is looking for a infection control. Many of the time, the environmental management is overlooked, which the facility round and the management round during that time, we can find out and we can correct those areas also. So what we need to do? As a healthcare organization, when we recruit the personnel, we have to see, we even emphasize that we take a qualified clinical practitioners and the support staffs, which will be validated through the education. We will recheck their credentials and we'll see their expertise. Though they are educated and qualified staff, still we will be giving them some time for the orientation. There will be a induction training, on-job training also will be ongoing, and based on that there will be a periodic appraisal also. So we are going to see the goals. I hope though the participants, those who have joined, we all of us know all our goals very well. So we just have to refresh them. That goal number 1 says identify the patient correctly. Goal number 2, it is improve effective communication among the caregiver. Goal number 3, improve safety of high alert medication. Goal number 4, ensure correct site, correct procedure, and correct patient surgery. Goal number 5 is reduce the risk of healthcare associated infections. Goal number 6 is reduce the risk of patient harm resulting from fall. So we are going to see each one of them broadly. Goal number 1 says identify the patient correctly. which is very, very important when patients are admitted to us. How to identify, when to identify, that we are going to see. As you can see in one picture number one, the ID band is there, but there is a sticker. Actually, what happens with this sticker, sometimes the sticker falls and there will be only a ID band. So when the stickers are labeled, it is not permitted. We are supposed to write it down with a pen with the patient's full name, IP number, bed number, doctor, and the identification completing like that. There may be a different kind of the color coded ID bands will be available in as per the hospital policy, which varies from the allergic to the procedure wise and as on. And when you go to the patient side, you have to identify the patient. First, you identify the patient, you introduce yourself, and then you start whatever your procedure is. So that's the first step, that you confirm that your patient is right. So where we should be where can identification error occur actually? That we have to understand well. Whenever patients are taken for diagnosis or any other treatment, many of the time there is a chance that wrong patient may be taken if we fail to identify our patient. There are reasons why it happens also. So what happens if the wrong patient is taken? If the wrong patient is taken, then the diagnosis will be wrong, the treatment will be wrong, and entirely there will be a chaos in the patient treatment. So we need to be very careful. So now, who is responsible for this? For this, the doctor is responsible to see the patient's identification, and the nursing staff who is mobilizing the patient for diagnosis and treatment, or giving the nursing treatment. At that time, you need to identify your patient very correctly and confirm that the patient is right. You be sure, then you start the treatment so you won't be at the problem. So where this can happen, many of the time this happens at the site of the location within the organization. Sometimes the beds are changed or the room numbers are changed. If the patient is sedated or disoriented and patient is not able to confirm with you that who is the patient, that time this can happen. Many of the time the sensory disability, sensory perception is impaired. Then also patient is not able to express the conditions of him and cannot confirm with you. So these are the areas where errors can happen and we need to prevent them. Why it is necessary? Because it is very much necessary to give the right treatment to the correct patient and to prevent the errors and the sentinel events. So we'll see how we can prevent it. So the healthcare organization has to have a policy formulation, very collaboratively developed, and need to adhere it. Many times what happens, there are SOPs, standard operating procedures will be there, policies and formats will be there, but they are lying and under the carpet and covered with the dust. We need to see that as on the time goes on, there is a periodically continuous training given to the subordinates, to the team, and how we can identify the patients correctly, and when to identify, we need to teach, especially when our new joinees are there. During the induction, you emphasize that how we can identify our patient correctly. So there are two ways we can identify our patients. Number one is, you can identify your patient by using at least two identifier. I'm telling at least two identifier. Patient's ID band has to be applied as at the time of the admission only correctly with the IP number. So you need to check whether the ID band is readable and correctly applied to a patient. And along with your patient's file, you can see the patient's name and you can call your patient by the name. Not necessary that there will be only one name patient will be available in the 40 occupancy, 40 to 60. There may be many patients with the same name, 2 to 3 patients are admitted at one ward, and there are high chance. Or many of the time, the healthcare workers have a habit of calling patients by the room number. Say one number, Masi one number ko le lo, Mama one number ko le lo. Never call your patients by a bed number, because the bed number remains there and there. But on that same bed, there may be another patients who have changed their bed and allocated, and there may be a transfer, discharge. So you always you have to call your patients by a name. If that patient is same name, say example Usha Ben Patel. If you say Usha Ben, how are you? If she is Usha Ben, she will definitely. Or you try to address patient's full name, Usha Ben Patel. If she is Usha Ben not Patel, then also she will not respond, or she can correct you that I am not Usha Ben Patel. So major disaster is prevented there and there only. So it is my humble request to all my colleagues, all my nurses, dear nurses, never call your patients by bed number to prevent major event. Always try to call your patients with the name. Try to remember your patient's name and then address them with the name. When you call your patients with the name, they also will be happy that, oh, my nurse is knowing my name. And you can confirm that your patient is right before you start any treatment. So when to confirm your patients? Any procedures like you give the medicines, you start your patient's blood and blood products, any transfusions, taking before taking any samples or any other specimens which you are sending for the testing. When the consultants are coming for the rounds, at that time you see that your file of the patient is correct and you are showing the same patients. Or any other treatment, whether it may be a steam inhalation, whether it may be a local application like eye drops, ear drops, or any there are n number of nursing procedures, all of you know it. So we need to see that we correct identify our patients before we start our procedure. Once you start the procedure, and then when you know middle of the procedure, oh, my patient is wrong, or you have already done something, then it may end up maybe threatening conditions to a patients also. So you need to see that you correct your patients identify before you start. Now we are going to see goal number 2, that is improve effective communication among the caregivers. When patient is admitted in the hospital, it is not one person who can treat the patient. There is a team who is involved in the patient treatment. So we need to communicate each and everything in very detail. A specific information you can highlight and pass on the information. When to give the information, it has to be on a timely manner, very accurate, very crystal clear information, and in a manner, complete manner, which reduces the error and will improve your patient safety. The communication can be different types. It can be electronic, it can be verbal or written also. So I would emphasize on the written information, because written information has a proof what is written and what is done and how the patient is treated. In verbal, there are no proof available. What the one has said, and there is no. Many of the time in case of emergency or the consultants are giving the telephonic order and all, there is a way how to receive the telephonic order also. So when the telephonic orders are taken, there is a sender and the receiver. So when the message is encoded, there is a channel. During that, there may be a lot of interruptions of like a noise and all, which will clutter the message, and the clear message won't be there. So what the one person has to do, a receiver can confirm it that the sender is sending you the correct message and you have received a correct message. Like the doctor is telling you injection Lasix 20 milligram IV stat. So the one who is receiving the message, you can write it down and you can call back. You can read back the message. Injection Lasix, Lasix 20 milligram. intravenously stat. Then the sender will confirm that yes, the message is clear. Then you can carry out the order. In that, what you have to do, you have to take the, when the consultant comes, the one who has given you the order, you can take the counter signature within 24 hours that the order was correct and you have followed the correct order. Now, we are going to see the ISBAR protocol. This is a toolkit for the handover. At the time of the handover, when the patients are transferred out from one department to another department for procedure, diagnosis, treatment, or during the handover, shift change time also. This is the protocol can be developed in the healthcare organization. Now it is mandatory for the NABH also that the ISBAR toolkit is developed and that is followed. So what it is identification of the patient with the name, age, medical record number, ward number, and the team member confirms with that. What is the situation? What are the symptoms and the problem patient has? And at present, what is the level of the concern of the patients that we can find out and we can write it down. What is the background of that? The history of the presentation when patient was admitted, along with any comorbidities or any other medical histories, date of the admission and the diagnosis, and any other past medical histories which is very significant, like PLWH or anything like hypothyroidism, or patients were on any other medications. That way we can find out. You can assess the patient, and based on your assessment you can prepare the plan of action. So what is your nursing diagnosis? We all of us have learned very well during our nursing education, during our training period, and that is what exactly we have to apply during our patient treatment also. Many of the time we see in the assessment and plan of care just risk for infection, risk for infection. But it is not risk for infection. You have to exactly assess your patient may be having a fever. You can write it down that, and based on that you can write down the plan of care, and you have to literally implement that plan of care every time. Don't expect that the patient you are going to give the infection. We have to prevent the infection when patient is in the hospital. So what you have done so far, and what is the outcome of the patient, whether your plan of care is whatever it was implemented, that was effective or not effective, that we have to see. After we implement our plan of care, we have to see the response of the patient, whether that was outcome was good or it was bad. Prognosis is good or bad. If the fever was there and you have given a cold sponge or a paracetamol with the doctor's order, you need to recheck it. What was the response to that? Whether your treatment was effective or not, or whether patient needs any other further treatment and investigations, that we need to check it. So we need to review by whom, when, and what can be done. And accordingly, every time, every shift, every with the patient's problem, uh, it keeps on changing your patient's plan and action. As per the assessment, your action also, plan of care also will be changed. So for the communication, we need to follow the acronym SPIKES. So what is SPIKE? It is 6 steps protocol following effective communication. Number 1 is setting up the stage. There are patients admitted with many medical conditions and surgical conditions and all, and it is a confidentiality of a patient that one patient's reports or discussion cannot be done in open. So we need to create an area where the doctor can counsel the patient or a relative or declare their discussion. So we need to set up this stage. We need to talk to them, and we need to know their perception, how much the patient know and what they want to know from you. So what is the patient perception? We need to invite their comments also, that how much they must have been come with lot of expectations. When the consultants or a nursing is there, they have a lot of problem. They just want to have a ears that someone is listening to them, and someone is talking to them and can discuss their problem. So we need to talk to them, and we need to know their problems, that how much patient wants to know. So when you discuss the patient problem, you need to gather all the information as per the patient's condition. You need to share the information how much you can, along with all the information available at hand, like investigations, treatment, and any other relevant information what you want to share with them. Many of the time, after the investigations and all, there may be a diagnosis which is like very emotionally will break down the patient and the relative. So uh, whom we can declare the communication, that I can give you the example, like patient has a cancer, blood cancer. It will be a like, oh, my patient was very much fine. Patient came walking to the hospital. Patient was not having any problem. And how can you tell like that? And they may show lot many emotions. You need to calm down and you need to keep along with them that yes, it is, but we are also with you. We know that how far this condition is very heartbreaking, but now what you can do, you need to go along with their feeling. You have to like uh, support them emotionally also, and you need to support in such a manner psychologically also, that they control their feeling in that condition also. Someone may want to cry and to ventilate the problem, that also is permissible. So subsequently you can declare the next visit, and when can the patient come for the next steps for the follow-up, and what are the treatments, and can be continued, and what would be the outcome for these, and in between if required, whom they can contact and how they can contact with the emergency numbers and all we need to declare it in this. So what you need to keep it in mind, there has to be a policy collaboratively developed which addresses the verbal telephonically communications very, very clearly. As I told you, when there is a verbal or a telephonic order, you need to write it down on a paper. Take a clear message, read it back, and then the sender will confirm that yes, the message is clear. Then only you can follow the order. Many of the countries do not permit the verbal or a telephonic order, because there are many of the time messages are like what the person wanted to tell, and when the receiver has understand, it may be different. So it is not permitted. But in case of emergency and all, we can take the order, and for the life saving of the patient's condition, we can follow the order also. So goal number 3, improve the safety of the high alert medications. When patients are admitted in the hospitals, there are many medications which we are using for the patient's diagnosis and treatment, which are maybe high risk, which may be look alike and sound alike. It may be looking same and maybe sounding same, like so heparin or insulin. It may be some many other medications which we need to highlight, that before we issue it, dispatch it from our department, from the pharmacy or from our nursing station to the patient, we can stop it. So here what you can do, we have to arrange in such a manner that during the patient treatment, we can plan it appropriately and we can ensure the patient safety. So what you have to do, you have to arranged accordingly high risk medicines before you give it, before you dispatch it from your department or before you administer to the patient. You need to uh, double confirm. You can counter check it with the other person, that the medicine which you are going to give it, whether it is same or not. Double check it with someone, confirm it whether it is same or not, and then only you can start it. Frequently medication safety issues are like, many time it is left like that only in the department. We're supposed to keep it in under lock and key, under the proper inventory. with the handing over and taking over at that time also, many of the times errors can happen when the patients staffs are not properly oriented, or new staff is there and patient care unit is like in case of emergencies and all in hurry worry, like one can make a mistake. So we need to see that while using any high risk medicine, we have to recheck it. It may take a minute, less than minute also, that whoever is bystander, like a nurse or a doctor, you can just show it to them. I'm giving injection KCl, potassium chloride. Check it whether it is same or not. So when the third eye check it, it is confirmed that whatever you are using it, it is same and the dilution is same, and then you can use it. So you can reduce the medication error. Medication error happens daily. There are medication errors daily, but it comes to the offices in very less numbers. We need to find out the near misses, that it was this was the incident which was about to happen, but during the counter check, one has stopped and it has not reached to the patient and has not caused any harm to my patient. So it is need to be very vigil, very much vigil, that whatever you are giving it, if you are safe and your patient is safe. So narcotics, always it has to be kept in a double lock. One has to hand it over properly. It cannot be left open like that only. In our hospital, there is a policy that it remains with the pharmacy. It is not allowed at the sub store in the departments. And the pharmacy received it with the Schedule X prescription, with the anesthetist's signature and all, and it goes to the department. And from there also, there is a record maintained that how much it is given, how many micrograms or milligram it is given, and what was the leftover and how it was discarded in double check. We maintain a register also. As per the NABH also, it is needed. Many of the medicines look alike and sound alike. So we need to arrange in such a manner that we, while taking also like insulin and heparin or NTG and 25% dextrose, if it is kept along with, then there may be a chances in hurry worry someone will take either way. So we need to stop it. We need to arrange in separate. Yeah, there is a policy that look alike, sound alike medicines has to be stored separate away from each other. So that way we can stop the medication error. A policy to be collaboratively developed that addresses the location where it has to be stored. It has to be labeled properly. It has to be labeled from the pharmacy itself, that high risk medicines are issued and how it has to be stored. Many of the medicines has to be stored in 228 degree. It has to be stored in 28 degree at room temperature. So all those instructions we have to uh, read it properly, and then we can store it. The concentrated electrolytes are not present in the patient care units. We cannot leave it at the bedside, because many of the time unnecessarily one can open and start it. So we need to prevent those administration error also. We will see the few look-alike, sound-alike medicines. There are like medications that carry a higher risk and there may be an adverse outcome which are life threatening. Patient will not give you the time, and until you think, oh, I have made a mistake, and then till you go to your doctor, there may be a haphazard happens with the patient and you may lose one patient's life also. So you need to be very, very careful before you give any medication. Any medication, do not neglect. Do not neglect. Every time you check the patient's medication rights first, you double check it, counter check it with someone, and then only you start administration. Few medications which are listed over here, they are heparin, warfarin, narcotic medications, potassium chloride. So how you have to arrange it? There is a acronym APINCH-S. So A stands for antimicrobials. There are many antimicrobials are available in the store, and that has to be arranged in such a manner that while giving it, when you select the medicine, you pick up the correct medicine only. Potassium and other electrolytes injections, they are concentrated, and many of the injections like potassium, you cannot give it uh, directly. You need to dilute it. So one has to confirm it and then only you can give it. All insulin, whether it is short acting or long acting, all narcotics, whether uh, it may be a sedative or only a painkiller, chemotherapeutic agents, and heparin, any anticoagulants, warfarin, and S stands for medication safety, such as independent double checks, safe administration of the medications, where during the in charge or supervisors, when they are there, or a doctor is available with you, that time nurses can counter check before you start up your medications. Goal number 4, ensure correct site, correct procedure, and correct patient surgery. So we are going to see the goal number 4 in detail. Almost in all the hospital, there is a surgical safety checklist developed and it is maintained also. So before the patient is taken to the OT, during the handover, you need to see that there is a surgical safety checklist is available. So before the induction, anesthetist will check according to the patient's given criteria whether the patient is same or not, consent is taken or not, whether the site is marked. Before the skin incision, anesthetist and the surgeon is responsible to confirm with all the team members whether the patient is right. And before the patient leaves the operation theater, the nurse verbally confirms with the anesthetist and the surgeon that the instrument counts are complete, sponge counts are complete, and needle counts are complete. And the specimens are labeled, and read the specimen labels aloud that everyone will agree with that, yes, it is correct. And then only one can be taken out. So this surgical safety checklist toolkit has to be followed very strictly in all the hospitals to prevent wrong patient taken for procedure. Before the patient is taken for the procedure, site has to be selected, and we need to take a consent of a patient also that the site is correct. Many of the time in the newspaper, on TV, we see the news that the hospital, so and so hospital has operated the patient wrongly. The wrong site is operated, right or left, left or right. The wrong procedure is done. The wrong surgeon has operated wrong patient. So here we need to take care that before we take our patient to a procedure area, we check our patients identically very well. These errors are will result into the ineffective communication, inadequate communication during the handing over and taking over. Patient has to be confirmed and called with the patient's name between the members and the surgical team, that they confirm the patient is taken right. Patient has to be involved as far as patient is awake, conscious, and oriented, that patient confirms the same patient is taken, and then verify the operative site also. There are many contributing factors. During the patient assessment, one can lack the patient assessment and this error can happen. Medical review, many of the time patient file may not be at the bedside or at the operated site, and then without checking of the patients, everybody is dependent on the nurses. What the patient nurses brings, they will say, oh, that is correct only. Everything goes right, others will be appreciated. And if one person also goes wrong, the nurses will be blamed. So dear my nurses, I would request you that before you do anything, whether patient is mobilized from your bed to chair also, you check it with the patient's identification has to be very clear, available on the patient's ID band. So you can prevent wrong patient is taken for wrong procedure, and wrong surgery. This will lead to a sentinel event. If this error happens, it is very, very like a serious matter and which will taken as a sentinel event. So there are many times there may be a illegible handwriting. Writings are not legible or it is not readable. You need to correct it. You need to ask the person to write it very clearly, or one can use capital letters to prevent the small letters error and all. And only the approved abbreviations will be followed at that time. So, uh, approved abbreviations list can be displayed in the healthcare organization, and they have to be followed by a doctors and nurses and the support services. So, the patient will be given a correct treatment. When to perform timeout? When the surgery or a procedure is over, this nurse will confirm that the time out. One will confirm that the sponge counts, the needles, and everything is correct, instruments counts are correct. At that time, closure can be done, and then only timeout is declared, announced, and with the operative team, it confirms, then one can take out the patient. The surgical site marking has to be done. As I told you, need to involve the patient, whether you have a right knee problem or left knee problem. And that has to be marked with a marker, permanent marker, so it will not erase off. And a big marker pen, with the marker pen, big mark, you can put it there, cross mark, so which will display it properly. During the handover also, one has to confirm whether it is fingers, toes, lesions, or whatever multiple levels, areas has to be covered. The surgical team is responsible for the another verification before the preoperative. When patient is brought from the ICU or a ward, when the operation nurse, OT nurse, holding area nurse is taking care, at that time verification process has to be done, where the consent is complete, site is correct, procedure is correct, and then only take the patient. So as I told you, there has to be a policy formulation timeout when it has to be according to the that policy, surgical patient or a procedure. As I told you, the marking, how it can be, this can be displayed like this, very well displayed, and then one has to start taking the patient inside for the procedure. And you can develop a checklist, which checklist, it is not only on paper to tick mark it, see that it is honestly done, and then you uh, take the patient for a procedure. Goal number 5, reduce the risk of healthcare associated infections. Healthcare organization, it is a notorious area where there is a high chance of the patient will be at the risk of getting the HAI, healthcare associated infections, nosocomial infections. 100% is it is preventable. We don't want to give the gift of the HI to our patients. Patient must have come with the headache, fever, or say only the pain in the abdomen. And when patient goes, patient develops a lot many infections, which will give a bad name to our organization also, and it will increase the burden also. So how there are many, and this pandemic situation during COVID-19, I think even the layman also has learned how to prevent the infection from each other. It has taught up over the pandemic journey of 8 months. It has taught us very well to keep a distance, to wash the hands properly, and to stay away unnecessarily to coming out from the home also it is prevented. And this has taught us very well. And even the hospital also, like environmental infection control, how to do it, and it has learnt a lot. So hands, they are the culprit. It is with the naked eyes, you cannot see. My hands are very clean. I can see my hands are very clean. Visibly, it is not soil, but still it carries, there are like lots of microorganisms available on your palm. So we need to see that we wash our hands very well, very well. And how we can eliminate the infection from the patients, because it will be a risk to a healthcare organizer, and it will be a risk to a healthcare provider also. One can carrier can transmit, and you can carry on and you can spread the infection. Likewise, you go and touch here and there without washing, without rubbing your hands, and then you keep on spreading the infections. So I hope in the pandemic and COVID situations, many of us have learned very well. So this is the 5 moments of hand hygiene before and after touching the patients. You must wash your hands and rub your hands with the antiseptic and whatever solutions as per approved by the healthcare organization. After touching the body fluid exposure risk, whenever you come across with the blood and body fluid, at that time also you have to wash your hands. After touching the patient surroundings, many of the time it is very ignorant kind of. If I touch the telephone, I may not remember to wash my hands. I may not remember after touching the patient file or a dining area like a cardiac table, or there are many, or any instruments. We may not remember to wash our hands. And again, we go and see another patient, or we may touch here and there at the nursing station. We may pick up our patient's other file and all, and that way we keep on spreading the infection. So we need to keep in our mind that we have to follow a proper hand washing techniques. Just for a sake, if we wash it and for the our satisfaction, we can wash it. But as per the CDC guideline, there are steps which we have to follow it. And it will take 40 to 60 seconds to follow the complete hand washing steps. And I hope all the nurses knows the steps very well, how to wash the hands properly. And when the hands are visibly soiled also, how to wash, and before any procedure also. So what exactly we need to do? We need to break the chain. As I told you, we may touch here and there, and we may keep on spreading the infection. So we have to break the chain, roots of the infections. So there are direct and indirect contacts. We have to cut it down. Wash your hands, wear the gloves, and wear the PPE in between whenever you want to nurse your patients. Single use instruments, which we have to send it for the sterilization if they have to reuse, or it has to be single use, then it has to be discarded as per the policy and procedures. We need to wear the PPE whenever we come across with the aerosol, or when we do any procedures. Protect yourself. Many of the time, the nurses know the consequences of the infection, know the problem which will lead to them, but still, many of the time, there is a negligence or a carelessness. Due to that, we end up with the serious complications. Goal number 6, the last goal: reduce the risk of the patient harm resulting from fall. Patient admitted to the hospital should not have any fall and should not develop any other complications in the hospital. So what we need to do, that we need to follow the Morse fall scale, and we need to update that scale whenever there is a patient admission. At that time, whether there was a history of the fall in the last 3 months or not, whether in the hospital there are any other areas where the patient is walking around, and passage is not clear, cluttering is there, or there is a wet floor, or if the patient is not able to come out of the bed, need a assistant, and there is a call bell area, call bell is in the reach of the patient or not. Many times call bell is there, but it is hanging on the wall, and one has not shown to the patient, and patient will feel very awkward. Oh, middle of the night, how will I call the nurse or a doctor to help me out, or why should I call my relative? Let him rest, and he will try to come out. And at that time, they may be like some medications effect and all, they may be under the sedation and all, and patient may have a fall. It may end up with a fracture and all. Patient may be on the day of the discharge. Today patient supposed to go home, but patient may land up with some complications. So we need to see that we clear out all these. So we need to see that we educate our patient properly and we prevent the fall in the hospital. There are possible risks that when patients are taken from bed to wheelchair, we need to see that the belts are applied. NABH has made it mandatorily any wheeled equipment like a stretcher, wheelchair, the belts has to be there so patient will not fall down from the wheelchair or a stretcher. Any wheeled equipment like a bed or a wheelchair and stretcher, there are locks available. So you need to lock them properly and then only you mobilize your patient. There may be like patient is walking with the help of the walker and all, but patient is not able to maintain the gait properly alone, need a assistant. So there you may help them out. Many of the time patient is trying to come out, though there are railings. In our time, in the olden days, there were good railings available, full railing of the SS material will available. Nowadays the beds are available with a good designs which give the chances to a patients to come out middle of the beds, and patient is trying to come out from this. When patient fall is happened, there is a team sitting around and will make an inquiry how the patient was, whether the railing was up or not. Though the railings are up also, many of the time patient like geriatric or patient is under sedation and all, small children, there are chances that patient will come down and there may be conditions like this. So what a nurse has to do, have to help them, support services have to come down, need to explain that when you are here, we are there, you don't feel like we will you just press the bell and we will be over here to help you out. Introduce yourself, that who are you, up to what time you are going to be there with your patients, and patient will be happily calling you and take your assistant also. So make sure that in the hospital there are no falls happen to your patients. So there is a Morsfall scale available, and I hope it is like uh, followed in all the hospital, NABH accredited and non-NABH accredited hospital also. This Morsfall score is prepared. If the score is 45 or higher, patient is falling into the higher risk of the fall. And if the patient is falling into the 25 to 44, uh, then patient is at the moderate risk of the falling down. And if the patient is very well oriented, there is no history of the fall, and patient is like not on any heparin or any psychotic medications and all, then also patient comes into the low risk. 0 to 24 is a low risk, but still we need to observe our patient. As I told you, on the day of the discharge also, many of the time patient have a fall, and it increases the patient's length of the stay in the hospital. And there may be chances like patient may under have to go for any other surgery or any other procedures and all. So just take care that when you are treating your patients, patients fall is prevented. Again, there has to be a policy formulated, initial assessment, not only the initial assessment at the time of the admission, but there has to be a reassessment for the fall risk. Every shift also can, or once in 24 hours also, or as per the patient condition, when as and when patient condition changes or medications are changed, at that time also we can see that we need to follow the Morsfall scale to prevent the fall of the patient. This is the, I want to show you the certificate which we have received from the NABH. We have celebrated International Patient Safety Goal Week last year in 2019 in the BD Mehta Mahavir Heart Institute at Surat. And I'm proud to inform you that NABH has given a certificate for quality promotion. I want to show you few snaps, the activities which were done in our hospital last year. And our management is also very supportive. And when, as and when, whenever we like approach them, they give us the permission to do this. And with these, what happens, no? When we are involved in the activity, we will not ever forget. when we are involved ourselves in the activity, there may be a one-sided communication which will not help us. But when we do the activity, when we involve the uh, ground staff level also, that what is your role and what how you are important in this activity, they also will be promoted and they will remember forever. And when they go to the bedside, when they apply it, any procedures at that time, they will remember and they will follow the safety measures also. So here I would not take much time, and thank you very much all the participants, those who have joined to me today. Thank you Polymed for arranging such a nice session and given me the chance. Thank you, Mitesh. I would specially thank Mitesh for taking a good initiative. He was behind me since last, I hope since last 6 months, he was behind me to come to the end this until I said yes. So over to you, Mitesh.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's our pleasure, ma'am, recognized us as a partner. Thank you. It was a great session. You have taken us through different six international patient safety goal. It was nicely explained. Uh, I
Thank
can't
you.
see any question from in question answer session, and some of the participant has written excellent session. Thank you, ma'am. So it was a great session, ma'am. And uh, few doubt, being a nurse, I just want to I have just write down some of my query regarding this international patient safety goal. I have practiced in Gujarat last 10 years as an infection control nurse or staff nurse since 2008. So I have seen people in Gujarat being nurses in Gujarat. हम लोग किस तरीके से बात करते हैं? आ काका ने आ થઈ ગયું, आ काका ने आ થઈ ગયું, आ uncle, आ
Yes.
auntie. So this ritual we have to change in Gujarat, especially I have
Exactly.
seen.
Yes.
So this is the major problem we are facing in the corporate or non-corporate hospital, entire in the nursing fraternity. Being all participants, those who have joined throughout the Gujarat, I just wanted to request all the people, just just take out the name X, the X patient, Y patient, whatever name that particular patient he has or she has. That is the most important. That will prevent your identification error. Absolutely, madam has raised the everything is in her presentation. And
Thank you, Mitesh.
ma'am.
When you call your patient by name, your the identity is confirmed, and the patient is very happy that the one who is nursing to me, the one who is giving the treatment to me, knows me very well and have a faith. You gain the confidence of your patient that the treatment giver, caregiver, healthcare worker is known to me, and I'm at the right place. So please see to it that you never call your patients by the bed number or kaka or masa or masi. And I would like to tell that whenever there is a confidentiality of a patient is involved, never declare anything like patient is HIV positive. Just say take care. So that there are medical terminology like PLWH for just for the conversation among our team only. So just make sure that we do not declare the confidentiality of a patient in front of the others. Thank you. Thank you, Regina. Is very happy to see you. Regina is my staff who was working with me in 2003 to 5, and right now she is in UK.
Oh my God. So you communicated that entire world. I am in UK, US, and Canada. People are joining us. That's
Yes,
great,
yes.
ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
we
Thank you,
are we are
Regina. Thank
happy
you,
actually.
Nancy. Thank you. Happy to see you.
Canada. Yes, she has written Canada.
Yes.
That's
Canada.
great. Canada, it's still
Fine.
there is some time, I can say, totally globe is totally round, and it's around Canada. Abhi udhar time ho raha hoga around 12:30 in midnight somewhere, and
Oh,
still she
wow.
joined. That's
Still,
great session.
that's a great, proud for me. Proud
Over
session. Regina, thank you very much.
Regis.
Uh, Ma'am, I have a, I just wanted to share something also. I mean, you have touched a very important point. Uh, is that it's a layer defense. I mean, see, if everyone is vigilant, everyone is patient safe, everyone is following a patient safe approach. Then uh, the hazard, the potential hazard, it will only go and reach the patient only when all the weaknesses are there in multiple, in the process. So if the clinical pharmacist, is not vigilant enough, if the doctor is not vigilant enough, if the nurse is not vigilant enough, then possibly the hazard has a potential to reach the patient. And for any type of clinical situations, and all these examples that you have cited, I mean, they were just making sense to me that, there has to be a failure of the multi-level defenses that we are using to protect the patient from any harm. And one of the things which were, coming to my mind is that, 3% sodium chloride,
Yeah,
how often people can mistake that strength of sodium chloride and give a fast infusion and cause a demyelination of the pontine area. So
very true.
I was and potassium chloride. I mean, so how harmful it can be if it is given unsupervised. So I thought that your talk resonated with some of the experiences I myself personally had in my clinical years of experience. So thank you very much for taking up those examples.
Thank you, Dr. Arjit.